In the quiet suburb of Willow Creek, Ohio, where autumn leaves painted the streets in hues of gold and crimson, Emily Thompson stood frozen in her driveway, staring at the rusted hood of her old sedan. The engine had sputtered its last breath that morning, leaving her stranded with a grocery bag in one hand and her 7-year-old daughter Ava's tiny fingers clutched in the other. Tears welled in Emily's eyes as she whispered a silent prayer, wondering how she would make it to her night shift at the diner without wheels. Little did she know, this breakdown would unravel a thread of hidden struggles, weaving it into a tapestry of communal warmth that would forever alter her path. Emily had always been the pillar of quiet strength in her small world. Widowed at 28 when her husband Ryan lost his battle with cancer, she had traded dreams of a cozy family life for the harsh grind of survival. Mornings blurred into evenings as she juggled homeschooling Ava during the pandemic's lingering shadows and scraping by on tips from the local eatery. The car, a hand-me-down from Ryan's parents, had been her lifeline, ferrying her to job interviews, doctor appointments, and the occasional park outing where Ava could chase butterflies and forget their worries. But lately, the vehicle had become a symbol of her fraying edges, leaking oil, grinding brakes, and now, a dead alternator that the mechanic quoted at $800 to fix. Money she didn't have. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily walked the 2 miles to work with Ava in tow, her feet aching in worn sneakers. Ava skipped beside her, oblivious to the weight on her mother's shoulders, chattering about school friends and the stray cat she'd named Whiskers. At the diner, Emily plastered on a smile, serving plates of meatloaf and mashed potatoes to regulars who knew her story but rarely probed deeper. One customer, an elderly gentleman named Harold, noticed her limp and the shadows under her eyes. He left a generous tip with a note scribbled on the receipt. "Keep going, kid. You've got heart." It was a small gesture, but in her exhaustion, it cracked the dam. Back home that night, after tucking Ava into bed, Emily sank onto the couch and let the sobs come. How could she provide for her daughter when every step forward felt like 2 back? The next day brought an unexpected ripple. Mrs. Elena Ramirez, the neighborhood busybody with a heart as big as her garden, spotted Emily pushing a shopping cart full of laundry down the sidewalk toward the laundromat. Elena, a retired nurse who'd raised 4 kids on her own after her divorce, waved her over. They chatted about the weather at first, but Elena's keen eyes caught the defeat in Emily's posture. Without prying, she offered a ride in her minivan, and as they drove, Emily's story tumbled out. The widowhood, the mounting bills, the broken car that trapped her in a cycle of missed opportunities. Elena listened without judgment, her hands steady on the wheel, and by the time they arrived, she had made a quiet decision. That afternoon, she posted a subtle message on the Willow Creek Community Facebook group. "Our neighbor Emily needs a hand. Single mom, great kid, car troubles. Ideas." Word spread like wildfire through the tight-knit town. Tom Wilkins, the local auto shop owner who'd fixed Ryan's truck years ago, read the post while sipping his morning coffee. He remembered Emily's quiet grace at the funeral, how she'd held Ava close amid the grief. Tom had his own battles, a son deployed overseas, a business hit hard by rising costs, but kindness had always been his anchor. He rallied his team, offering to inspect the car for free. Meanwhile, Sarah Klein, a teacher at Ava's school, saw the thread and thought of her students' families. She organized a bake sale in the school parking lot, turning cookies and cupcakes into a fund for what she called Emily's Fresh Start. As days turned into a week, Emily faced her darkest twist. A call from the diner manager informed her that shifts were being cut due to slow business. Panic set in. Without reliable transport, she couldn't even apply for the warehouse job across town that promised better pay. Ava sensed the tension, drawing pictures of smiling cars and handing them to her mom with hopeful eyes. One evening, as rain pelted the windows, Emily sat at the kitchen table, bills scattered like fallen leaves. She considered selling her wedding ring, the last tangible piece of Ryan, but the thought twisted her gut. In that moment of despair, a knock echoed at the door. It was Elena, soaked from the downpour, holding a casserole and an envelope. Inside were donations, 50s and 20s from anonymous neighbors, enough to cover a temporary fix for the car. But Elena's eyes sparkled with more. The community was planning something bigger. Unbeknownst to Emily, the acts of kindness multiplied in the shadows. Harold, the diner regular, donated his old but reliable SUV, whispering to Tom that he rarely drove anymore since his wife's passing. Tom and his crew spent evenings in the garage, tuning the engine, replacing tires, and even adding a fresh coat of paint. Sarah's bake sale raised extra for gas cards and a year's worth of oil changes. Even young Ava contributed unknowingly. Her classmates, inspired by their teachers' tales of helping hands, collected spare change in a jar labeled for Ava's mom. The emotional undercurrents ran deep. Tom thought of his absent son, Elena of her lonely years, Sarah of the kids she'd seen slip through cracks. Their compassion wasn't pity. It was a shared humanity, a recognition that anyone could be one misfortune away from needing a lift. The turning point came on a crisp Saturday morning. Emily woke to the sound of voices outside her home. Peering through the curtains, she saw a crowd gathered in her driveway. Neighbors, diner patrons, school parents, all smiling under colorful balloons. Elena stepped forward, keys dangling from her hand. "We've got something for you," she said simply. The group parted to reveal the SUV, gleaming in the sunlight, with a banner reading Willow Creek Cares. Emily's knees buckled as Ava squealed in delight. Tom explained how it all came together, his voice thick with emotion. "It's not just a car," he added. "It's us saying you're not alone." Tears streamed down Emily's face as she hugged each person, feeling the weight of isolation lift like morning fog. The vehicle wasn't luxurious, but it represented freedom, the ability to chase that better job, take Ava to dance classes, even visit Ryan's grave without begging for rides. In the days that followed, Emily's life transformed. She landed the warehouse position, her confidence bolstered by the community's faith. Ava blossomed, her drawings now featuring a big family of friends. And Emily paid it forward, volunteering at the food pantry where she'd once been a recipient, her story inspiring others to open their hearts. In Willow Creek, that act of collective kindness became legend, a reminder that in the midst of hardship, human connections could spark miracles. Emily often reflected on that rainy night, realizing the envelope from Elena had been the first thread in a web of support she never imagined. It taught her that vulnerability wasn't weakness, it was the doorway to grace. If this story touched your heart and reminded you of the incredible power of kindness in our world, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to Pure Kindness Stories for more uplifting tales, and share it with someone who needs a spark of hope today. Together, we can spread empathy and prove that one small act can change everything.